Hi, I'm Rebecca Bradley. This is the Virtual Crime Book Club. It is Monday, the 28th of March 2020, and today we are discussing A Necessary Evil by Abir Mukherjee. It is the second book in the series and the second book we have read of Abir's, because we did actually read his first book as well. So it's the first time we've read an author twice, so we'll see how we get on with his book this time round. Hi Lynn.
Hello.
If you are watching this as a video and not involved in the hi Mel, not involved in this meeting, be aware that there are likely to be spoilers along the way. So usual questions first. Did you enjoy A Necessary Evil?
Yes.
Yes, very much.
Is that an all-round yes? Yes. Okay. What did you enjoy about it?
I love the humour in it.
You loved the what in it?
The humour. I thought it was very witty.
Has that changed from the first book, or is that Abir's style?
I think it's his style, because I've read the next couple as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's him.
Yeah.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I don't think I was particularly looking forward to it when it was selected, which is my own doing. I think I've got something sort of vaguely prejudiced about the English in the large and that sort of time, and I wasn't overly looking forward to it, but it was written with such a light hand that I couldn't help but enjoy it as it went on.
I think I feel similarly. I didn't have high expectations of it, and because of that, it really surpassed it. I'm not too keen on non-modern crime, but I thought the summary of it sounded quite good, so that's why I decided to read it. And yeah, I really liked it. You learned something about Anglo-Indian relations. You learned a bit of history. I liked the characters. Yeah, enjoyed it, and I would think about reading a follow-up, a second one. Yeah.
So it was historical and set in foreign lands, so it was a big change over to what we have read a lot of recently. So what was it that you liked about it, Chris, that made you change your mind on it?
I just think it was the way it was written. The whole plot moved along at pace, which I really liked. I thought I was going to find it quite heavy, and it wasn't at all. It was such an easy read. There was lots going on. I almost found it slightly Shakespearean in a way, which might seem a slightly odd thing to say, but with the political infighting and the romance and the humour, it is just totally unexpected for me, and it really got me on board.
Brilliant. What did everybody else enjoy about it?
I really like it. It was set in India, so it was quite interesting to read about India and the Maharajas and all of this. And of course, it was really a very nice space. There was always something happening. And for me, it was also very easy to read it, which is not always the case. In some cases, it's difficult to get into the story. So I read it quite quickly, and I really enjoyed it. It was set in India and in the past and all of this. So yeah, it was a really good book. It was the first one I read of this writer. Yeah.
I've read, I actually read this one a couple of months ago because I've got a few in the series. I'd already read the first one. And what I really like about them is I do like the way they develop the relationship between Sam and Sergeant Banerjee. You can really see that coming along. And also it's got some unexpected snippets, you know, this like almost curveball that's right at the beginning, where the sergeant is really well known to the prince. And, you know, he's and you become aware of the fact that he's obviously from a wealthy, educated background himself, and he's not just some sort of low, as I say, I think they bring that out very well. And also I did love the fact that they dealt with the sort of like the princes, as it were, here, because I declare, having loved things like the Far Pavilions and stuff like that in the past, I thought this has such a sense of place. I think those are the two strongest ingredients for me of why I like it, or why I've enjoyed the books.
Yeah. Anybody else want to say what they enjoyed about it?
I suppose
I would. I like the history.
We've got Lorraine and Craig and Kathy want to say something. Go on, Lorraine.
Okay, good morning. Well, good evening. It's morning here, and
good morning.
It's just after 6 in Sydney. So,
wow.
And it's raining. Hasn't stopped for 2 years.
We've got two
anyway,
Australians in this today.
Well, there you go. We're taking over.
Good to have you.
I enjoyed the easy readability, but there's certain things about it that jarred. I mean, I found it to be a very, very much a boy's own adventure. I've not read anything else by Mukherjee at all, but it was interesting coming in at the second book. I just kept thinking, look, if I have to read that word surrender not again, I'll punch this guy in the face. And there was another thing that really jarred and almost made me throw the book around. I know it represents the time of when it was supposed to be done, when it was set. But when Wyndham was saying that he couldn't understand, he can understand what an Englishman would see in a dusky maiden, but he couldn't understand the other way around, when, this woman should really see that he was a fine, upstanding Englishman, albeit with a huge opium habit, and how that was much more attractive than any other man could possibly be of a different nationality. That just jarred. And I thought, well, even though it's set in the 1930s, that still resonates today. And I just, But what annoyed me is I used to work for a multicultural company with an Indian base, and they all had to ostracize their names, anglicize their names. And I kept thinking, just call them by their name. Learn to get your tongue around their name. But anyway, that's just me saying that. But I had to keep reading it to the end because there were so many red herrings. I had to keep finding where the trail led me. So that was good about the writing. It was just that, I don't know, maybe it's some English imperialism I was getting a bit annoyed about, being a colonial, but I don't know. But that's just my opinion. I thought I'd go off the beaten track there to keep people going. I'll probably get, a number of comments right now. No, that's my opinion.
No, that's what the book club is for, because we can't all read the same book and take away. We read a book and we read it differently. We take away different things from it, and that's what we do at the book club. Is we discuss it. But I think with the Sam and Banerjee thing, if you'd have read the first one, Mukherjee went into a bit more detail in the first book into his name and their relationship and how he came about to calling him that, and that kind of thing.
It still annoyed me, and I understand that I was coming into the second book, but and I thought, obviously there's a backstory about all this, that, and the other, and how it came about. But I just thought, look, call him by his name.
But can you imagine? Abir has probably got the same issue with his own name, that he's going to get mispronunciations of his own name. So he knows how that is.
And also the imperialism in it, which I quite take your point on, doesn't it sort of like speak to the authenticity of the writing? Because that's probably exactly what it was like.
I know, and that just
and so irritating though we might find it, and then it's sort of like a bit of a historical, certainly part of our history that we need to perhaps be ashamed of. I'm speaking here as,
Yes.
as an English person, but you know, that's probably exactly what it was like. And as I say, that speaks to me of the authenticity of the writing.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, I agree.
dispute that.
I agree
think
there,
it
but I
was-
just thought, let's not go back that way.
Can I also say, having read on in the series, that without, I don't want to spoil too much, but this relationship between Sam and Sergeant Banerjee does develop, including the way he pronounces his name. I mean, I think it's part of a trajectory that Mukherjee's got the characters on, if I can put it that way.
Oh, that's good. Brilliant.
Yeah, can I just come back to, because Jane was saying that she thinks it's representative of the time, where I would sort of say that I very much doubt if Sam would have been so PC, you know, that he would have been very much of just bossing the Indians around and considering them as nothing, as the majority, you know, of your English people did. And I think that, you know, he's been made a hero because he doesn't think like that, and I think that that's not well represented.
I read an interview when I was making my question notes this afternoon that Abir did with somebody online, and it was about Sam, and he just kind of wanted to explore that kind of relationship of the colonialism, and have somebody decent in there try to navigate it from that standpoint.
Could it also be an element that because Sam had gone through the trenches for part of the First World War, I'm going back from my memories of the first book, that he actually that he sort of like felt less, if you like, less what's the right word for here? So less sense of superiority of the British or whatever, that he felt that there were failings in our own system, and that therefore made him more, if you like, more tolerant of other cultures. Don't know, just a thought there.
He had some losses himself, didn't he, in the First World War?
Yeah. And also I think there's reference in maybe it's in one of the later books about he seems to have a lot of respect for the Gurkhas, and in terms of what they went through, and as a fighting force, and being very, very aware of the part that the Indian troops had played in the trenches, which indeed they did. So I say, just one, throwing that in as a thought, possible explanation of why Sam thinks maybe a little bit differently compared with what you would expect the average English man going over there might think.
Craig, did you want to give your viewpoint on the book?
Yeah, I absolutely love this book, and I like the series. I've read most of them now. I've read 4 of the 5. Yeah, I really like the relationship between the 2 principal characters, and the humor between them is fabulous. The way he just pops in Bunty every now and then, like, you know, when he feels he's getting above himself, it just makes me burst out laughing sometimes when I'm reading it. But I like the fact that Sam Wyndham, the captain, is not pure, because he's got this opium habit, so he's fighting the demons constantly. Yeah, he comes across as quite a conscientious sort of person, wanting to dig and find the truth, and I absolutely love the way they have these adventures. And you've got the principal characters, you've got that small surrounding of the characters, Taggart and the Viceroy, and Section H appears, and then the adventures in each individual book that goes on, and you build the characters around there. I'm a real fan of his writing. I find it easy to read. I love the flow of the story. I really like the adventures, and to me it's in set in India, and I just think of of the beauty that it must portray in those times, and so it all builds into this sort of really great book.
And you've gone on to read further books in the series.
Yeah. So I read up to number 4, and I'm waiting for the paperback, because I've collected them in paperbacks, and so I think the paperback comes out in April. So I'm waiting for the paperback of his last one. He's just sort of published, and I'll be grabbing it in April to have my set.
Right. Well, I spoke to Abir on Twitter before we got on here, and I said, if there's a hat trick and you get picked again, he said he'll come on. So I think my email went into his spam folder, but I chased him up on Twitter and I said, if there's a hat trick, I said, we'll have to get you on, and he said yes. So
okay, great.
Just as an aside, on the BBC Sounds, there is a, which you can get from BBC Sounds, Jim Naughty runs a Radio 4 book club where they invite authors on, and then they obviously publish who's going to be the author and the book a week in advance, and then listeners can send in questions, and some of them come online, or on the telephone to ask the questions direct to the author. And there is one for Abir on discussing the first book in the series. I came across it on BBC Sounds, so it's well worth, if you're interested in the series and like it. It was a really interesting book club that they did. Yeah, just
that's good. So people can find that out if they want it. Kathy, did you want to make comment on the book?
I actually loved that it was set, in the 1930s. I enjoyed that. I previously read another book written by somebody who set in this time period, and I just love that. I did feel that the main character, and I cannot find the name for the heck of it. Anyways, I found him to be a little more politically correct than probably was the standard at the time. So it was kind of nice that he had a couple of flaws still too, the cocaine addiction, and the where he thought the white woman shouldn't be attracted to the brown man. It was like, yeah, he's not quite there yet. But I enjoyed the setting very much, and I thought it was well written. It's easy to read, and once you start, you really don't want to put it down.
So who was that? Sorry. Did somebody start speaking then?
That was just me, sorry.
Go on, Margot.
I wanted to just make a comment about the character of Annie, who I really liked in the novel, because she was making her way in a world that is very much a man's world and very much a white man's world, and she's Anglo-Indian. So she's got, if you want to put it this way, 2 strikes against her, and she's finding a way to make her way without, I thought, being too anachronistic. I thought her character was very well drawn. I liked her in the first book too, but I think we see a little more of her here, a little more of the way she negotiates the world. And I thought that added a good touch to it.
Yes, I think the characters were particularly well drawn. I do think that there seemed to be a lot of thought gone into them. As well as the characters, India as the setting, how much did you feel that played as a character in itself within the book?
Good.
Did you feel that the sense of place was there, and did it have a character of its own?
I would say absolutely, and again, that's part of what I was taken in by. When we were in Calcutta, you could almost feel the hustle and bustle of the people around you. You could feel the heat, and there were little quirks, if you like, that were brought in, such as a funeral when they punctuate the head to release the soul and then go and retrieve the navel. And I thought, I don't ever want to die in India, so I made a mental note never to go there. But I thought it was, the writing throughout was delightful, and yeah, I definitely got transported there.
Yeah, I think it was very good that you did have this bit in Calcutta. So you're seeing very much colonial India, and then you're moving into the Prince's Kingdom. So you're getting a contrast into how different regions were seen, and governed.
We do move into palace life and the royal family. Could Sam and Banerjee have done anything differently when they were investigating around that kind of different lifestyle and way of doing things? Do you think their hands were tied more and they had to step differently?
There was one thing slightly connected to that, which I think got a bit lost in the book, because they used, sorry, I've forgotten a woman, the main woman in it, to ask questions, didn't they, towards the end? But earlier in the book, I thought the first prince that got assassinated, this, again, I've forgotten the Indian name of the person who's going to get the Maharaja title, but his white girlfriend had offered to ask questions, and he'd agreed that she should, and then that kind of got lost in the plot. So I suppose they could have thought about, using women in there earlier on.
Yeah, that kind of brings us to the ending, which we'll wait to discuss, with the role of women. Sam's still addicted to opium. He even tried a different, more potent type. Do you worry that he's going to lose his way? I mean, a couple of you have read further books. Do we have to worry about him? Or do you think it's just a flaw that he's got as a character and nobody's worried about him?
So don't stop worrying yet.
Don't stop worrying yet.
Yeah.
But surely that's the flaws are very important of it, that you don't know how it's going to go.
What was that, Vera?
I was just saying that I think flaws are very important when you are building a character, right? It makes them more human, more likable even, or so for me it was important that they had a flaw. I had this opium addiction, and yeah, I think that's important in the shaping of the character. Yeah, I'm a bit worried. He seemed very dependent on opium, although he said, yeah, I tried opium because I was pretty sure that I would not become addicted. So, but yeah, I was a bit, I'll read the rest of the series because I quite enjoyed this one. And yeah, I'm a bit worried, yes.
Because you don't want the flaw to just sit there. It needs to kind of go somewhere, doesn't it? So what did you just say, Lorna? Sorry, you were both speaking at once.
Sorry, I think that having the flaw, I mean, that's part of this, because you don't know which way it's going to go. Is he going to have a crisis and get over it, or or will he sort of manage his addiction? So it is the unknown that is the draw in his in this part of his character. I think that because if you think back into Victorian times, and as you can see that there are loads of opium houses in Calcutta, that lots of people did have this addiction. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops.
Did I miss this? Do we think Banerjee knows?
Yes.
Probably knows. Yeah.
He does. Do we know that, or do we think that?
We don't know.
We think that.
Yeah. We suspect that.
Even Sam, he said something like Banerjee suspects this because, okay, they have been living together in the same quarters, and Sam goes for a midnight walk once in a while, so that's a bit suspicious. And they are policemen after all, so they should be able to follow clues. So I'm pretty sure he suspects.
Yes.
Of
There was
course,
a whole, sorry.
yeah, I was just going to say that in many other sort of like, you know, when they're developing more modern, if you like, or books set in more modern times, where they're developing the character, quite often you find one of the lead detectives might have a problem with alcohol, for example, but opium seems to fit much better with the time, and also
Yes.
it's probably
Mm.
an easier addiction to hide from your superior officers, if not from say your sergeant.
Yes, yes. It doesn't seem to be affected while he's working.
No, and I say in a way that possibly if he was an alcoholic, that might have been a more difficult thing to hide.
Yes. We had a whole raft of new characters introduced in this book, with the princes and everything. Did you have was there a standout character for you that you particularly liked being introduced to, or a new, different? Did you enjoy the new world? Was there anything that stood out particularly?
I was quite worried for the one who got arrested. You know, and she just as if you be less to fester. And I have to admit that all through the book, I kept, you know, every time he went to question her, it was a case of he could look down onto the temple, and I thought that it was going to come from her, that she was going to tell him that the Maharani and the Divan were in cahoots, sort of idea, you know. That one threw me. I thought that's the way that one was going.
Okay, then we're coming to the ending. Did the ending surprise you?
Little.
No.
No, nobody looks surprised.
Oh, yes. I
Yeah.
didn't, I didn't expect that, no. Although you started getting an inkling near the end. It's like, Although I think I kind of thought it was the little boy's mother, not the old, and I don't know how to pronounce that, Maharani, the first wife. I didn't expect it to be her. I thought it was going to be the third wife.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure that there were that many people left. We'd sort of gone through most people as suspects. So, but I was surprised. Like Kathy, I thought that it was the younger one. Yeah.
Were you satisfied by the way it was ended?
No, I was very disappointed that the murderer did not go get brought in for justice. But oh well. I'm sure it's not that unusual in that time period, though.
I liked it because justice is not always served, so I think it was quite good. It will be very difficult to believe that Maharani will be brought to justice, and how could they prove this and all of this, and so I liked it the way it ended. I think it felt more believable, and yeah, it was good. And it was good that they had so many strong female characters. I like that. Because at the end, it was all this plot by all the females that live in seclusion, and at the same time they were the ones that were actually running the kingdom. So that was interesting.
And do you think that was unusual for 1900s India, for the women to be so strong as they were shown to be? Do you think that was unusual?
I think it would always depend on how strong the Maharaja was. In this case, he was a very weak Maharaja, so therefore the woman could have more influence.
But does she have to be sneaky to do it, or can she stand up on her own 2 feet and be the strong woman?
I'm trying to think back to my very vague knowledge of the Indian Mutiny, but I think there had been powerful Maharanis or powerful females even back then. So that would be what, 56. I'd say very hazy details on the Indian Mutiny, but it was well before that it was in the previous century. But I'd say I'm sure, I've a feeling there were some powerful women around even then.
In his footnote, he does mention that it is based on a kind of dynasty of, I think it was 3 Maharani types. And I think it was something like it was 100 years. It was 1819 to 1926.
Oh, I listened to the audiobook and I don't think I got the footnotes.
Yeah, there is the author's note, and it says that this was inspired by a tale of a dynasty of Muslim queens who rule one of these kingdoms for like 100 years. So it was inspired by this true story, where this line of Muslim women ruled this kingdom.
I love how you have to sort of peel back the layers to get to who's really at the center of power in this story. Ostensibly you have the British controlling India, but not in Sambalpur, which is the next layer where you have the Maharanas controlling everything. But then within that, there's this other layer, which is all the Maharanis in the Zenana controlling everything from the female community. I thought that was a really interesting way of getting into it.
Yes, definitely. It was interesting to see such an open ending because crime novels are usually, they have to be wrapped up neatly because that's the way that readers like them. For the bad guy to be caught and a happy ending as such. So for her to say, yes, I did it and there's nothing you can do, is quite unusual. In a crime novel, don't you think? So
I think it is unusual, but I did like the caveat that, in case he was still inclined to go ahead and try and find justice, she said, basically if he did, then the lady Indian prisoner would be murdered, would lose her life. So that made it a bit easier for him.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
From my point of view, as a reader, you definitely need to know at the end who it was who was responsible. But to find out who's responsible and then not be brought to justice, I don't have an issue with. I actually quite like that as an alternative ending.
Yeah, I liked the ending. I didn't mind it. I liked that it was different to the usual way of doing it. So would you read the next in the those that haven't already, because a couple of you already have, would you read the next in the series?
Yeah,
possibly.
Yeah, I'll go back to the first one.
You'd go back to the first one, Vera?
Yeah, because I haven't read the first one, so I read this one. So now I'll go back to the first one and I'll try to read the rest of the series. Yeah, I liked it.
Right, okay.
I would read the next one. I wouldn't bother with the first one. There's so many books to read. I'd read the next one.
So we've had quite a resounding agreement on this book that the group enjoyed it, enjoyed the sense of place, and quite satisfied with the ending.
Yep.
Does anybody else have anything else to say on the book before we move on to next month?
All I can say is all power to the Maharani.
Yes.
She did it and got away with it. Mind you,
she did.
She had to put up with seeing all these other women coming along. So, and being the first one, she should have more power than anyone else. So I say all power, girl power. So yeah, I would read another book, I mean, I'm madly reading Mick Herron's the Sale House ones at the moment, and looking forward to Gary Oldman as Jackson Lamb. So that should be good. But anyway, I do digress. But yeah, I would certainly give Abir some more, get into some more of Abir's books, just to see how he gets on with this opium habit. So I'm interested in that. And now that I hear he's going to have a little bit of more of a problem, I'm intrigued. So I'm in.
It's a shame that the eunuch and the assassin suffered such horrible deaths, though. You know, to have a elephant stamp on you in bits and you lose your legs first, and then it's a shame that they weren't just trained. Yeah, they should have just been, finished off very quickly. But apart from that, power to the ladies.
I forgot all about that elephant. It just looks at it for instructions. Yes. That was grim.
Yeah.
Okay, let me stop this recording.